All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside In Tennis Podcast. Mitch Michals here. This podcast is available on all your platforms. Go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your shows. This is an opportunity to talk to someone who's been well-versed in the coaching ranks, another successful season, now officially a recurring guest on the show. Someone I've also seen on television a few times as well. Joining us now, the coach of Marta Kostyuk. Second time on the show, it's Sandra Zaniewska. Sandra, welcome back to the podcast. Excited to get to chat with you again.
Hey, Mitch. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I mentioned that we saw you guys on television. It was a cool shot. It was all the players reacting to that crazy Townsend Krejcikova tiebreaker at the U.S. Open. It was yourself, Marta, Taylor Fritz. It was just, it was kind of cool. We called that like a monitor. It was like a sellout around the monitors. Like everybody was just locked in, showing that even if you have no skin in the game, the drama of tennis is just overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that tiebreak was completely insane, honestly. We were actually after a match and we were supposed to stretch, but Marta was just like, let's just finish this tiebreak, but it took forever. So in the
Yeah.
end, all of us were watching, me, Marta, her husband, our fitness coach. I think even Mander, the dog, was there, just waiting, trying to see what is going on. But yeah, well,
Yeah.
it was an incredible one, honestly, and pretty painful to lose that one for Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly was. I think that that's part of it, and we can, catch up on your year, but people don't understand all the ins and outs of tennis, and part of it is that cool down period where, I got to see every year at Indian Wells, one of Marta's matches, and then you just see all the players afterwards, but how there's so much work to be done right after the match, even a successful match where you still have some downtime, but you have to cool down and go over things. So I think that side of it too, like the post-match side of being a player and being a coach is something that a lot of the general public doesn't understand.
Yeah, sometimes it even feels like it almost never ends, because people often think that, we have a match day and there's just the match. Maybe we warm up a little bit before, but it's never the case. I mean, it starts with the warm up way before the match, right? The physical warm up, then the tennis warm up, then probably some food or something, and player is ready to go to the match. And after the match, it's the same story. So you go, you cool down, you stretch, you chat about the match. I mean, depending on the result, maybe the player needs a bit more time to themselves. If they win, obviously the mood is a bit better. If they lose, it's sometimes tricky to navigate. And even after all that, which probably will take about an hour, just to cool down, you still gotta shower, you gotta eat, and then you gotta have a treatment. So the day stretches out and it's pretty long in the end.
Yeah, makes those wins even more special when you put all that work in and then you're able to collectively get something done. How has the last year been for you, Sandra, since we chatted? I know it feels like a whirlwind at times, and you might be like on the hamster wheel, even as a coach, where we chatted towards the end of 2024 and it was great. And then the off season lasts like a week and then you're back on the road again. But how has the last season been, working with Marta and then also just the grind of being on the pro tennis circuit?
Well, as always, it's been a bit unpredictable. I think that in tennis, when we make plans, they rarely come out the way we would want them to. But this season has been a bit tricky, honestly. I mean, Marta had quite some injuries that were a bit random, honestly. I mean, I guess injuries are always pretty much random because nobody expects them. But yeah, she was prepared really well physically, and even though we had an injury in the preseason that we weren't sure if she was going to make it to Australia. In the end, she did, but she was still half injured. So we were, trying to make her ready enough to play the Australian Open, where obviously she had a lot of points to defend because last year she played a quarterfinal there. It wasn't as good this year, and then we were slowly building up to again, getting to Madrid with a bit of a like strain on her ab, where again we weren't sure whether she was going to be able to compete or not. We had to pull out of Stuttgart to make sure that she has a chance to do that. And Madrid, Rome was great. And then we had something that also happened first time to me as a coach, I think it was 2.5 months or 3 month maybe period of where Marta didn't win a match. So it was, first round Paris, first round London, and some first rounds in between. And then finally she won a match in Montreal again. And then kind of things started rolling the way they always do, I would say. But that period was also a bit
Yeah.
tricky because, you don't expect it. She just played two great tournaments in Madrid and Rome where she lost to Sabalenka, having set points in both sets in Madrid and in Rome, also 7-6 in the second set. So we felt like the level was there, and we felt like the momentum was there as well, and then suddenly everything came crashing down. But it was a good we learned some good lessons along
Yeah.
the way, I'd say. So it's September now. There is still a little bit to go.
Yeah.
So we're just going to try to squeeze out as much as possible still from this season.
In terms of the injuries, Sandra, and I want to get into a lot of that. That was really, informative, learning all those things. But in terms of the injuries, when they're a little random and they pop up, how do you balance as a coach? And I know Marta's not here to quote unquote defend herself, but she's a competitor, obviously wants to get out there. How are you navigating the waters of trying to get her to maybe understand the bigger picture of it's okay if we rest up here? I know there's pressures to defend points, as you say, and to get back on the court, especially when you're trying to get momentum. But how do you navigate working with the player when you're trying to express it's their best interest to maybe rest up and think of the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think it's never easy, because as you said, the player feels like they need to defend, they need to chase, they need to keep going. They also want to do better, they want to climb the rankings. But at the end of the day, I think we have a really great team around us, together with like our medical team of osteopaths that Marta really trusts. And even though she has those urges to, maybe we can make it a little bit faster, I think she really trusts us very very well, for us to figure it out and to do it the best way possible. We always try to get out of those injuries in the most organic way possible. If we don't need to have injections or something like this, we don't want to do it. So we want to do it as naturally as possible, but of course as fast as possible too. But we look at, her career in the long run. So like we look at it at a big picture. We look not at this year, but I always try to tell her, okay, let's keep in mind, what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, not just this year. Because if you just look at, what's happening in the next month and that you have points to defend, of course you want to get out there, but maybe in the long run,
Yeah.
if you come back too fast, it might not serve you well.
Yeah. The scheduling too, like of practices and when to work, right? That's where your specialty and your job comes in. That's where your role shines, is that you have to balance even when they might be ready to play, even when Marta might be able to tough it out and grind it out. It's gonna, as you know, adjust her practice and what she can and can't do in the lead up before a match.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had this situation just now before New York when in Montreal she fell on her wrist. Got a bit injured, we couldn't really compete in Cincinnati. I mean, we could. She did play one match, but she still had pain. And, the question was, okay, is she going to keep pushing this week? And is the wrist going to be okay for New York, which obviously is the bigger priority?
Yeah.
And we decided to pull out, try to fix it as well as we could. And honestly, until the last day, we didn't know if it was going to be good enough for her to practice to play the tournament. When we were practicing in New York, we definitely didn't get enough practice time. All she could do was about 1 hour per day on court, and that was the max. And we were kind of, racing with time a little bit to make it work. But yeah, I always say that also for me as a coach, these weeks, where things are so uncertain, they teach me the most because, like you gotta take a little bit of your experience, but also a little bit of your intuition, a bit of a feel, a bit of, how well you know the player, a bit
Yeah.
of also listening to the other members of the team, right? That actually take care of the injury, of what we can do, what we cannot do, how far can we push.
Right.
But for me, that week was a little, I felt like I was holding my breath that whole week, and then only at the end when she actually went on court to play a match and she had no pain, I finally exhaled like, okay, this is like, she's good, so we're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important to know for people that didn't hear our chat last year and don't know enough about your story that you weren't like bred, I think it's safe to say, to be a coach. Some would say maybe fell into this career. It was serendipitous in a lot of ways, but you were a player, you worked with your friend Petra Martic, and then these opportunities tended to happen. So you're learning a lot about your style. There's a lot of natural ability in your abilities as a coach, but is it safe to say there's been like, a lot of on the job training where you're learning a lot as you go as a young coach in your profession?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is still the case, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I thought that I experienced so much already on the tour with different players, but this year when Marta had that losing streak, I was like, wow, that has never happened to me, that's something new to learn how to navigate. So I think, it's like with everything in life. I mean, you can get the theory, you can read the books, and you can listen to other people, but until you are thrown into it and until you actually have to deal with those things yourself, you're not learning as well. That's how I
Yeah,
feel, at least.
it's adjustments, right? As a player, you knew this, but as a coach too, you can develop your own style, your core beliefs, which every coach should have. But yeah, someone throws you a curveball. All right, she can't practice. All right, this happened. There's weather stuff. That's where I think, adjusting as a coach in particular in this conversation is just great to have, right? You can't just be so rigid that you can't adjust.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I often say that tennis is, it's a lot of improvisation that we do, that the players do. I mean, it's very rare that a player goes on the court and they feel perfectly, the body's good, the mindset is good, that they are at the 100%.
Hmm.
Like maybe you have a 1 or 2 matches like this a year, but you play
Yeah.
so many more. So you have to be I mean, you have to be well rounded. You have to be good at adapting to things. And yeah, sometimes you have to be good at improvising too.
When you played, were you a good planner in terms of your schedule and being taking initiative, or were you more go with the flow? And I bring that up because as a coach, right, a lot of it is planning and no, maybe down to the hour, down to the minute, whether it's just the court time, match preparation, or even the off court stuff. Was that something that you were good at as a player, or are you just adjusting to now more as a coach?
Yeah, I think I generally like planning. I know, like, I like to know what's happening. And as a player, for most of my career, I didn't have a coach that was traveling with me, like full time. So I had to, take it into my own hands and plan things for
Yeah.
myself. So I feel like I just kept doing that when I was a coach, and it was very natural to me.
Does Marta lean on you for planning more, maybe as much as you think, like in terms of scheduling stuff out? And because I know you mentioned you guys are a tight team, the whole group, her husband, the dog, obviously a part of it too. So it seems like you guys are really close, and there's planning for stuff outside of tennis, dinners, and that sort of team bonding thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always, even when we schedule tournaments or practice weeks, wherever we do them, like I always ask Marta what she wants and how she sees it as well, because for me, it's important that she's involved in that process. I mean, at the end of the day, she is a professional tennis player. She's not a junior anymore. I'm not going to, like, just make a plan and tell her what to do. I really like her input because, I mean, I think as coaches, we need it. I cannot get into her own brain and her own body and feel what she feels and know what she wants. So this is more like a collaboration, I would say, between
Hmm.
us. And not just between us, but also between other team members as well, our fitness coach Yola, and
Hmm.
our medical staff as well. Like, it's important to have everyone's input, because we are all responsible for parts of her game and parts of her development. So yeah, I would say it's a collaboration. It doesn't all fall on me.
Yeah, well, that's good, and that's definitely good. Everyone can kind of share the load, and you have too, like the closeness, right? Like whether it's a road trip where you're all packing into a car, or just those moments that they're fun, they're light, but that's also where some of the breakthroughs can happen, right? Like it's good to have just some conversations that aren't on site, aren't on the job, so to speak.
Yeah, I often say that, my some of my best coaching happened over dinners, and that's true. And I think, I'm gonna come back once again to this period of time this year where Marta lost so many matches because we had so much time off the court, obviously, because she wasn't competing, that we've had some really, really great conversations, and I would say some pretty good breakthroughs that, I
Hmm.
think those times are important as well, because they always teach
Yeah.
us something, and I feel like we took out of it as much as we could, which
Hmm.
is, a great thing. Like, that's actually how you want to feel at the end of
Yeah.
those tough times.
Well, having continuity too is huge, especially you're in a profession, Sandra, that unfortunately doesn't breed a lot of continuity. A tough streak for a player, and some players, a lot of players even, would make a coaching change to try to switch things up. It seems like that continuity is a blessing, obviously for yourself to get to work with a talented player so long, but there's positive results in some players. Like you can look at history books, the longer coaching partnerships have led to a lot of results. So how important is it to in your profession, work with the same player, the same talented player for a long period of time?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, we passed 2 years with Marta now, and it's the first time that I'm working with someone longer than 2 years. So 2 years was
Yeah.
my cap before, but it's nice, because I feel like over time the relationship evolves and it changes as well. And obviously the results are up and down. I mean, they are pretty much always up and
Hmm.
down, no matter
Hmm.
what your ranking is.
Yeah.
But I think that the longer you work with someone and the more things you go through with them, whether they
Hmm.
are good things or bad things, I mean, or positive or negative, so wins or losses, the more commitment there is and the more understanding there is as well. And I think if two sides, can equally
Hmm.
commit and show up the same way, I think you can create something really
Yeah.
meaningful and something
Right.
lasting. So, I hope that we keep going with Marta as long as possible, and I hope that the results are going to keep growing and keep getting better, because at the end of the day, this is
Mhm.
what I'm here for.
Yeah. Well said. How's it going, Sandra? How's it going in terms of the unforced air discussions with Marta? Have we made progress on that? I remember the last time you mentioned it's not really an unforced air, is her defense of some of the unforced air. So where are we on that,
Uh,
topic?
well, it shifts, it ebbs and flows, I would say. You know how it is with players,
Yeah.
sometimes some things come back, sometimes some things don't come back. So I'm not sure exactly where we are at it right now, but I think I'm going to ask her when I see her.
Okay, yeah, it's we want that update too. It's
Yeah.
very important. More of Sandra Zaniewska here on the Inside in Tennis podcast, talking to Marta Kostyuk's coach for over 2 years. Real pioneer in a lot of ways, and some cool off-court stuff to get to as well. But yeah, in terms of the coaching side, Sandra, and you look at players and methods and working with coaches, tactics and tendencies are brought up. And I wanted to ask you, I don't think we brought this up last time, but do you guys use video film to study a lot more, or would you say you're on the front foot of that? Or because I know analytics and looking at data and really studying, different types of information can go a lot of different directions in tennis. But would you say you guys are on the side of using video and analytical data?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the future of tennis. This is the future of technology. So I think it would be not very smart to miss out on that. And Marta is also a very visual person, so we use a lot of video, especially in preparing matches. So I always bring out, when I present tactics to her, I always bring out the videos of how I think she should play, and then we kind of talk about that. So videos are first, and then we have a conversation, because it's just different in her head when she sees it first rather than hears it. And then when it comes to analysis, I mean, obviously, we cannot we cannot our eyes, no matter how good of a coach you are, our eyes cannot compete with the technology and everything that it picks up. So yeah, like I said, I think that you kind of have to use it, because otherwise you're left behind. So yeah, we are big fans of that as well.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? Tennis is such an abstract sport in a lot of ways that you never want to lose your creativity out there, but it's very smart the way it's going to look at data and see results. And you said something there interesting too, right? Like positive reinforcement, seeing yourself do it, whether you're a visual person or not, seeing a clip of you, like, this is how I want you to play in Marta's case, and here's an example of you doing it that way, can go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And same with data. Like, there are some things that obviously Marta doesn't see the data, I see the data, and I am kind of the translator of the data for her. So I know what to bring out when,
Mhm.
when is the right time to tell her a certain stat or discuss a certain thing with her that I found out through the data. And I know that some things I just, should not bring up, because they will not be constructive. And I think that's, maybe also in the future, that's how our role as coaches is going to change a little bit. It will not be so much about scouting the opponents ourselves. It will be more about looking at the data and then translating it to the players, so that we make sure that they have the best possible strategy to go.
Yeah. It makes total sense. And one of the things that maybe caught a lot of people off guard, not just Marta, but a lot of players 2025, I can't remember it happening. They made racket changes. And there was a lot said about Wimbledon, the adjustment that Marta made, going to a different racket. Where were you in the process, and what were your role in kind of how this all went down? And something that, seems drastic to the outside, but more and more players this year, it's an objectable fact, are doing it. So where were you when Marta decided in that process to make a racket change?
Yeah. Again, this is a collaboration, so we talk about how else we can improve her game, like what are the things that we can do, and whether it's, the racket, the string, the swing, like literally anything. We discussed it together, and then whatever we need or whatever we want, we discuss it with the racket brand. And yeah, we try, we test, and we see what feels the best. And then obviously, what feels the best at practice might not feel the same when you compete. But then, so after the practice, we test it in competition. If everything clicks, that's great. We keep going.
For the fans out here that might not know this process right on the practice court, is it constantly switching? Like when you're testing out rackets, is it just, okay, let's hit a couple balls with this one, quick chains here? Marta might be, collaborating with you, as you said. Is that process just kind of like a trial by error?
A little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's different for every player. Some players, they can literally take a racket into their hands and they will even shadow swing. They don't need to hit a ball and they'll be
Oh,
like,
wow.
no, this is not the one.
Yeah.
But I usually try to encourage a player to hit at least a few balls with it. If they want to switch like often every couple of minutes at the beginning, that's fine. And one important thing is their feeling, obviously. I mean, that's the most important thing, but the other important thing is also, what do I see, whether the it feels like she's hitting the ball with a bit less effort or more effort. Is the ball going deep? Is she forcing it or not? So it's what I see, but mostly it's what she feels.
Well, it sounds like Marta's open to change and the idea of change. Obviously not just going to change willy nilly, but a lot of players wouldn't be taking bold steps to improve their game on the chances that it could be a setback. But it does sound like, and you can elaborate, like she's open to change if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think, here I would go back to our team dynamics. Like, there's a lot of trust within the team. And I think a part of the trust is because nobody is really afraid to admit if they did something wrong or if they made a mistake, and we all do. I mean, coaches do too, and that's normal. I mean, that's how we grow and we learn. And I think that also builds the trust because, we never try to, even if we did something wrong, we never try to push it through and be like, okay, no, this didn't happen. And, let's just like sweep it under the carpet. We solve things as they come. And I think, Marta really trusts us. And thanks to that, it's much easier to be open to changes too.
Well, that's good. It's good that trust is the core foundation there. And then one of the things too I wanted to bring up, I was watching all the tennis in Madrid this year, and I noticed that they were miking up coaches, and you were one of the coaches, and it was, the epic match against Sabalenka was one of them. But just that process too, like being mic'd up as a coach. How did you feel about that and having your voice kind of out there and your coaching kind of out there?
I didn't think of it much, to be honest, because I know that there are always microphones on the, on the big courts. So sometimes I just remind our team, like, guys, remember there are microphones, just so we don't say something that, we maybe wouldn't want to
Yeah.
be out in the world. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't really change much. Like, I go out there because I want Marta to win and I'm going to support her as much as I can. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a great moment where during the rain delay, it was, there's heated emotions going on, but I love that line where it's like, well, it's done, got to move on. It's just what's done is done. So it's no
Yeah.
use crying over spilled milk, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, like, what can you do? I always say it is what it is. So, I mean, honestly, I would say that at that moment, great job to Marta because she could have, she could have been fighting for it and, or maybe not even fighting for it, but I would say obsessing over it, but it really
Yeah.
was not needed at that moment. And she really just let it go in an instant. So that was great.
I think too, it kind of opened up your style a little bit. There were moments where you would coach instructions, I would say, but not like scream them. It was like, hey, this is what I would do. This is my advice. This is how I would approach it. And a lot of times it was right, but there was a good balance in your tone. I think that's kind of what's maybe most revealing about these mic'd up coaches is that they reveal tone a lot. Like you don't know how a person actually coaches until you hear it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it before, but you are right. And I think that our job as a coach obviously is to support the player, but to support the player, we need to stay calm and we need to stay collected. We need to know what's happening and we need to be as objective as possible. And we also need to know how to get to that player. So, sometimes it means saying it in maybe like a rougher tone. Sometimes it means like softening up a little bit, but it all goes back to like knowing the player well and knowing
Yeah.
what they need at the moment. And, yeah, I think that was a good match.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was very interesting too. And I read the write up that happened at the end of last year. Matt Futterman, the athletic New York Times writer, and talked about the calming presence you are in Marta Kostyuk. But it's true. Like a lot of times in these tense moments, it's like a reflection. It's a mirror. So if a player looks up and sees their coach freaking out, what are they going to do? Probably freak out as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not always easy to stay calm and collected, I would
Oh,
say, but um I don't know. People tell me that I look calm on the court. Am I always calm? Definitely not. There are moments, of course, that I stress, but But yeah, I mean, I'm just a human at the end of the day, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try to do my
Hmm.
job as well as possible, and I try to get to be able to
Yeah.
get to Marta as good as possible. And I think, so far it's working, so that's great.
When Marta plays a great match, unfortunately doesn't win, but plays a great match against the number one player in Sabalenka or a top five player in the game, what's the reaction after? I know no one wants to win and you want to, and you believe you can win every match, but how is it on your end to stress the progress and, the positives out of playing one of the best players in the world and being right there?
Yeah, the match with Sabalenka and Madrid, honestly, it was tough because Marta had set points in both sets, and you feel like, oh my God, if she just would have won one more point in each set, literally
Hmm.
just one, like the match would have been hers. And even though it was a great match, she loses 7-6, 7-6. Yes, it builds momentum, and you feel like you're on the right track, but it's very different from winning this match, right? So you still have to go back, start from scratch, and you ask yourself those questions. Well, what if she won? What if maybe she would have won the tournament? Maybe the tournament could have changed so much, right? So um it's just a natural state of mind, I think, after matches like this. But at the end of the day, you just got to
Yeah.
brush it off and be like, okay, we try again,
Yeah.
because it's another loss. Like, it's
Yeah.
probably better to lose 7-6, 7-6 to number one in the world than to lose to even number five in the world or number 10. So you just got to find the
Yeah.
silver lining, move on, and try again.
That's so true about tennis, right? You're so close to a big result. A lot of times you don't know when it's going to come. You got to just stay the course and hit the practice courts because one big result could be life changing and at least season changing. So you never
Yeah.
know. You just always got to stay ready.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not always easy because there's only one person that wins the tournament every week, so there are so many losers every week, and that's how you feel. And you pretty much go throughout the year losing in most of the tournaments. I mean, if you don't lose 5 weeks of the 20 weeks that you play, it's an
Yeah.
amazing season, right?
Yeah.
But you still then lose 15. But again, it's just about being resilient and move, like, you have to have the ability to forget quickly.
Right.
If you remember too long, like, it's going to weigh on you, and that's not going to help. You have to be as light
Right.
as possible to approach the next week, the next tournament, and the next match.
When you get to a slam like the US Open and it's, just a scene, these are like 3 week events we've been talking about now with qualifying and the mixed doubles event and just all the buzz that tennis deservedly so gets. How do you balance the off court obligations, right? The sponsorship stuff, the buzz of just having a city, having a giant city host a slam. As a coach, how do you balance a player dealing with the challenges outside the tennis court and stuff they have to do contractually?
It's important to set the days during that practice
Hmm.
week in a way that the player doesn't feel overwhelmed on any of the
Hmm.
days. Because when she has more commitments that we need to schedule on some days, then we schedule less practices. We cannot do it all the same because it's just going to be too much. Like, obviously, if she has a shoot or if she has some event that she needs to go to, it isn't hitting tennis balls and it isn't being on the court, but for her it's actual work, right? So just as for her it's work being on the court, it's also work being at an event, and that makes a player tired. It just makes the human tired as well. So I think you need to have well, again, knowing the player helps, but you need to have a good feel of how well they respond to certain things and to certain stimuli, and make sure that not like they are not you don't overdo it on any of the days, I would
Right.
say.
Right. Yeah. Planning obviously key. And it's the old phrase that we say here, work smarter, not harder, like knowing what you have to do and maximizing your hours together. But yeah, it's nice to have those opportunities, but that's the challenge of it. How do you maximize your energy level? And we saw that in some matches. Like it's tough. And I wondered too for the coach, Sandra, like when a player has long early round matches, are you a little nervous? Are you like, okay, let's see how we can recover? Because she fought Marta did early on and played some tough matches, but they were some physically long matches.
Yeah, I'm never worried with Marta because she's really fit, So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that plus. I mean, she's a great athlete, and she can go on for a really, really long time. So I'm not afraid of that at all. But obviously, it is better, it is wiser to play shorter matches. But I
Hmm.
think that comes, a little bit with experience, confidence, and level. And this is definitely a goal, I think, for any player
Hmm.
to play matches that are as short as possible, but still win
Yeah.
them. And yeah, that's just a part of the growth.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is. And does that kind of, as a coach, I always wonder this too, does that go down to individual points? Like we know Marta's fit and can grind down anyone, but are you sometimes thinking, okay, maybe let's shorten this to save some energy, like shorten the points, and maybe I know she goes for winners, but sometimes maybe even thinking the points can be a little shorter?
Yeah, 100%. I think, that her being able to grind out matches, it's obviously not the tactic that she has every single time. Like if this is for me, this is the last resort. Like she is not
Yeah.
a grinder for me. Like she has that ability naturally, but I don't want her to be a player like this, and she doesn't want to be a player like
Mhm.
this either, because we know that you have to have the ability to play pretty aggressive tennis in order to be in the top of the world, and this is the goal and this is the dream. So we need to just work on shortening the points, being more aggressive, being a bit more, I would say, convincing on the serve plus ones, return plus ones, where pretty much most of the action happens in tennis
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah. It seems like she's also mastered when to use the crowd too. Like it's time to go, get the crowd involved, raise her arms a little
Yeah,
bit. So that's another thing.
she's a performer, like she's an entertainer. So I think that's a part of her personality, and I think it's great because it's never boring when you watch her.
No, definitely not. There's always a couple hot shots in there, and yeah, it was. Look, losing to Mukova, who's made a couple semifinals here, has had 3 straight great years in 3 hard-fought sets, is a tough one. But it also does show, Sandra. We talked about this last year. The depth of the women's game is pretty insane right now. Just the last 5, 6 years, you can look at the top 20, 30, 40, and see some really great players, top to bottom.
Yeah, I think that's, it's such a great thing for the sport because it makes everyone better. And honestly, we need that. I think that, again, everyone knows what they need to do on the women's side in order to get better and in order to, play better. But there are so many players that are, again, 40 and that can beat top 15 players. And it happens often. And I think that's a beautiful thing for the sport because it just makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think, there was debate about lowering the seeds. I think 32 is great because you still have all these great matchups, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to succeed at this sport, but it's good to see where the depth is. A couple more things with Sandra Zaniewska here on the Inside in Tennis podcast, talking to Marta Kostyuk's coach as she prepares to put the finishing touches on her 2025 season. And yeah, that schedule, Sandra, involves, as we were discussing beforehand, a team Billie Jean King Cup competition for Ukraine, followed by the Asian Swing. So there's still a lot to accomplish this part of the year, and as you know, a lot of ranking points, a lot of prize money, but a lot that can be built for momentum to next year is handled in these last 3 months.
Yes, yes, and that's the key. I think it's always great to finish the year on a high. Otherwise, especially a year that has had a lot of ups and downs. So I don't want to say that we're hoping for it because we are not. We are working for it. Also, this Asian swing, at the end of the year, everyone's a bit tired already. Like the whole
Yeah.
season has passed, and everyone knows that this is kind of the end. And it requires a little bit more of that, motivation and that just internal will
Yeah.
to still perform and still compete. I think that at the end of the season, you really never know what's going to happen. It's a little bit like beginning of the season for me, like
Yeah.
some players feel like they've had a great season, so maybe they're a bit more relaxed. The players that didn't have such great seasons, they feel the pressure, and when you start the season,
Yeah.
it's the same. You're like, okay, I haven't competed for a little bit. How, like, how did the prep go? Like, I'm gonna see right now, how do I feel on the court and all of this. So
Yeah.
yeah, very interesting moment of the year.
Yeah, and it sounds like in terms of stuff working on, and you mentioned it, all the action seems to be like serve plus one. Is that a primary focus of, developing Marta's game even better?
I think it's a focus for everyone.
Yeah.
That's where the point starts every single
Yeah.
time. So it's only the right thing to do, to put a lot of
Mhm.
attention to it, and yeah, improve, improve, improve.
In a perfect world, everything goes well. She finishes the year strong, healthy, fit. When will the practice really ramp up for 2026? Is it a couple weeks off and then we're back to it? How does that work?
Yeah, a couple of weeks off, just to reset, spend some time with the family, and go for holidays somewhere as well, hopefully. Probably mid-November or so. So it
Yeah.
gives us, about six
Yeah.
weeks to prepare to the
Yeah.
next season and then start it all
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah, plenty of time for you to surf and hike and jump out of an airplane, get that out of your system before the tennis
Correct.
season. Very, very, and way more ambitious than I am, that's for sure. But yeah, I wanted to ask you too, and this has been great, Sandra. The writing, the Substack's been blowing up. It's been great. You are a published author for those that don't know. You wrote the guide, basically the premier book that I've seen on being a tennis parent, which is very informative. You've written a couple books, but the decision last year to start the Substack, how has that been going? And what have you tried to accomplish and learned about your writing style?
Honestly, I love it. It's I would call it a little bit like self-therapy, like self-coaching therapy.
Yeah.
And it came randomly. I started writing this year. I mean, I love writing in general, and I started writing for myself. And then, I wrote about a couple of things, and I was like, this could be
Hmm.
something, but I wasn't really sure what just yet back then.
Hmm.
And then I sent, a couple of these things to my friends, and they were like, wow, we love it. I mean, you should start publishing it online, and then I just researched how that's possible, and hence the unseen chord, it's
Yeah.
there. I like it. I try to be consistent with it. I got a lot of good feedback as well, so I'm happy
Hmm.
that people enjoy it. And I always try to list parallels between tennis and life, and really how similar those things are, but also just sharing some of the
Yeah.
experiences that I had, and things that I've been going through. um yeah, I try for it to be like raw and vulnerable, to show the side of tennis that people don't talk about so often, but it's
Hmm.
there, and it hangs over everyone's heads. And sometimes it weighs. So yeah, I try
Yeah.
to just share that part of me with the world as well.
I think it's great. And I also think there's something to be said about coaches and people in positions like yourself that never really get the chance to expand on certain topics and things that they want to. They could be, like self therapy, as you said, but you have a take on something you want to express, and you can do it in more than just like a quick soundbite, a press conference, or just even a post online. So long form writing, I'm with you. It can accomplish a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you said it well. I think it's a great platform to do that, to just extend a little bit and to share a bit more about just the life on tour, but also, the good parts and the bad parts, because there are always both. So yeah, I'm glad that I started it, and I hope that I'll continue it for as long as I can, for as long as possible.
Yeah, we'll see if another book comes out as well. That's we're all on the lookout for that. But no, I appreciate this chat, Sandra, and I know that you're in a position that comes with a lot of responsibility. Not as many female coaches, and I know that it can be heavy to wear that burden. But you've done a great job in terms of just keeping it out there, going forward for women that want to get involved in coaching and doing it in a positive way. So much respect for that.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I think um, female coaches subject is has been brought up so many times over the past couple of years, and things are changing little by little. It's not going that fast, but I think, I was talking about it at US Open with someone, that I think that the only thing that will, maybe not the only thing, but the thing that will move it forward quicker is, having one of the female coaches having an unbelievable result with a player, whether it's winning a slam or, winning some masters. So, and doing it consistently. So, we've had Conchita this year that did a great job with Mira. And it pushes the needle
Yeah,
a little bit forward, but I think we need a bit more
yeah,
consistency in that. So yeah, I hope that I can contribute as
yeah.
well for female coaches, but also for Marta, for all of that.
Well, doing a great job as well, Sandra Zaniewska. We appreciate you coming on the show. We have the headline for the podcast as well. It's just Marta as a performer, so we'll have that probably blasted out on the internet.
I love it.
But thank you so much, Sandra, for coming on the podcast. It was a blast. Much success. Wish you best of luck going forward in 2025 and beyond. But thanks for joining the show. Can't wait to chat again.
Thank you, Mitch. Until next time.
Until next time, that was Sandra Zaniewska. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Again, available on all your platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Music. You know the drill. And subscribe to the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals for the full video episode. We're going to be back in a couple days. More tennis to discuss. Thank you to Sandra Zaniewska. Thank you to everybody out there listening. My name is Mitch Michals. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Enjoy the tennis. I'll talk to you soon.